Well, good morning, Wildcats. This is Eric Witherspoon. I'm the superintendent of Evanston Township High School, and I'm joined this morning again for our weekly E-Town Live with Dr. Marcus Campbell, the principal of ETHS. Morning, Marcus.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Doing my best to maintain, positive spirits, trying to be supportive of our students and staff. I'm also doing some teaching at Northwestern with other educators from the area, and ETHS is certainly not in this alone. So, but I'm doing okay. How about you?
Well, what a good reminder that we're not in this alone, and I too am doing fine. We keep talking about a new reality or a new normal. It certainly is, but I think that that's part of the human spirit, this adaptability. It may not be easy, but we do our best to deal with what we've been handed. Yeah. So good to see you this morning.
Good to see you too.
And I just want to follow up on one thing that happened last week, and that is that the governor announced officially that the school year will be remote, and we will not be returning to school buildings in Illinois for the remainder of the year. Now, you figured it was coming. I figured it was coming, and in fact, because I had some knowledge that he would probably be announcing that Friday afternoon, I tried to allude to it a little bit and give everybody just a little preparation for what that means and how we're not going to be able to be doing everything the rest of the school year as we would have initially planned. But I just want to say, and certainly for me, when it became official, it was still hard to take. We figured it was coming, but to all of a sudden have the reality that we are not going to be able to come back to this building and to ETHS and complete the year the way that we had hoped is still pretty hard to take. And I'm going to talk about that more at the end of our program, but right now, Dr. Campbell is going to bring us up to speed on many of the things that we are doing here at ETHS. So, Dr. Campbell.
Thank you, Eric. Yesterday, ETHS shared information with our staff, students, and families about remote learning planning days. In short, these days are given by the Illinois State Board of Education for the coordination, the implementation of strategies for continued remote learning. ETHS will use 4 of these days in May, and on these days, students will not have to engage in remote learning. They will not have to submit work on those days. Some people may wonder, why are we doing this at the end of the year? As some of you may recall, our IIT department had developed and implemented an e-learning plan last year that really provided a solid foundation for us to transition to e-learning in March. And with that said, when we adopted e-learning in the fall, when our Board of Education did that around October, I believe it was, when we left in March, no one could have predicted a worldwide pandemic that would essentially shut the school down for several weeks and for several months. And so we need to use these days to address the challenges of an extended remote learning period. We wish we could have been prepared for this. Had we known that we would be in this situation, we would have had contingencies for this, but no one could have predicted it. Our staff has done a great job adapting, but we need more time to prepare for this extended period. Dr. Witherspoon?
Well, and I'll just follow up on that because it's a nice reminder. Many of our students will recall that last year we did a trial run on a remote learning day so that we could make up a snow day and we could see how it works. And fortunately, our teachers and entire staff were really prepared for that. They had time to prepare, and it really went well. But I just want to brag on ETHS a little because there was a front page Chicago Tribune story just recently that pointed out that Illinois schools were really not prepared for e-learning. They were really not prepared for remote learning. But one of the things in that article is that they gave a shout out to ETHS. Because in this whole North Cook regional education area, we were the only school district when this pandemic, or at least the dismissal because of the pandemic started, that already had an approved e-learning plan with the Regional Office of Superintendent in place. We were just doing what we thought we needed to do, and we had spent many months preparing for it. What I think is really gratifying is to realize that not only were we the one district in this whole region that already had an approved plan, but we also ended up serving as a model for other school districts who actually used our plan in order to get an approved plan themselves and to start remote learning. So we're still figuring a lot out. We don't have it all figured out. I'm sure students and parents, you've seen several bumps in the road in dealing with this, but we are certainly ahead of the game, and we are certainly, thanks to this tremendous staff and all of our teachers, making this work. Marcus.
Yeah, there was a lot of Wildcat pride in that sharing of the article that, as Dr. Witherspoon mentioned, we were just planning for some contingencies in the winter, and we managed to get that done sooner rather than later. But yeah, there are still challenging days ahead. This is why it's very important for us to end the year with compassion, and that is compassion for our students, compassion for our families and our community, and compassion for our staff. We are grateful for our staff who have engaged in this compassion in so many ways. We had a Holocaust Remembrance virtual Remembrance Week, which we were able to do. Thank you to Mr. Becker for pulling that together and for pulling that off. It was just absolutely amazing. We also did Poetry Month virtually, and our student activities department has been sending out Friday songs. I think there's one going out today with some great photos in it, and there has been a lot of craft and activity videos from our daycare director, Ms. Fuller. There's just been a lot of compassion, a lot of us showing community and care for one another, and we're managing to keep some of these things going, be it virtually. It's still in our hearts and still in our spirits. And I should say that there's also a climate presentation happening tomorrow virtually. I think our student activities director is going to send out that Zoom link later today for students to check that out. And so this kind of effort, this collective effort, this Wildcat pride and this E-Town collectivism is just wonderful to see. It warms my heart every time I get an example of it. For example, last Friday night, we engaged in that E-Town lights where we turned on our stadium lights and everyone turned on porch lights all around town to acknowledge and to recognize the class of 2020. We had managed to get those spotlights waving in the air last Friday night. People were driving by the stadium on Church, honking their horns. It was a great thing. Another staff member sent me some shots from the air, which I thought was pretty cool, and that was just an amazing moment for us. And we will continue with the Friday night lights at Lazier Field every Friday at 8:20 through May 22nd. So this is going to be an every Friday thing. So tonight, and every Friday through May 22nd, we're going to continue to shine the light on the class of 2020 because our hearts and minds are with you for our seniors. Dr. Witherspoon and I also got an opportunity yesterday to Zoom with our yearbook staff and a sponsor, which was pretty cool and pretty nice. So there will be a yearbook this year. The Key yearbook is in its final production and will be completed by the end of June. The Key staff are working very hard to complete that book. So seniors, this is your last chance to be featured in the Key. Please check your email for a yearbook. Please check your email from the yearbook staff and send the requested photos before the deadline because we want to make sure that we capture this moment in time. Eric?
Well, I really appreciate that you lifted up the fact that we also want to do everything we can for our seniors. And one of the things I know that's on everybody's mind is graduation. We are going to have a virtual virtual graduation, and we're going to have it on graduation day, just as we had originally planned on our calendar. And so there'll be a lot more information coming about that. There'll be ways to personalize it. There'll be ways for the class to celebrate with one another. So keep on the lookout for that. I'd love to give you more information now, but I'll level with you. We are still figuring that one out. And so as we get it figured out, we will get information out to all of our seniors and all the families that are going to be involved in our virtual graduation. Another thing is we are going to have summer school, but it is going to have to be remote summer school as well. And so we are planning for that, and we'll be getting more information out on that as well. Seniors, if there's any opportunity later on in the summer where we can do something with you in person, whatever that might be, whether that's some kind of a follow-up graduation ceremony or some other kind of way to celebrate the class of 2020, I just want you to know we are still open to doing that, and we will do that if we are actually permitted to do that. So when I announce a virtual graduation, don't let it dash your hopes that there might not be something more. Just know that we're going to do what we can as the time happens and that we can do it. And finally, on my part, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Campbell, I'd just like to talk a little bit about what all this is really meaning. I came across a quote last week by David Starr Jordan. He was actually the first and founding president of Stanford University. And so he was literally a person who lived through the pandemic of 1918, 1919. This week, yesterday, just yesterday, the governor announced that our stay-at-home order is going to be in effect in Illinois through the remainder of May now, another 30 days after April. It's going to be a long time. And it's going to be something that we're really going to have to deal with. And this quote that I found from Dr. Jordan, I think, helps us think about what that means. He said, wisdom is knowing what to do next. Skill is knowing how to do it. And virtue is doing it. This past week, I shared that quote with all of our staff, because I was thinking of it at that moment in the context of our staff. Having the wisdom, or certainly developing the wisdom, to know what to do in a time like this to serve our students. Having the skill to do it, and figuring out how to make that work even on a completely new platform. And having the virtue that we are indeed doing it. But I'd like to put that a little bit more in context for us as a community. Because the pandemic of 1918 that resurged even in the winter of 1919 was certainly a traumatic and deadly event in the history of this world. It's estimated that 20 to 50 million people worldwide had that flu. It was an influenza that went around. And during that time, there were literally millions of people. I'm sorry, I misstated that. 20 to 50 million people died from that flu in 1918, 1919. And it's estimated that a third of the people in the world actually had that. We know that like 675,000 people in the United States died, and the population back then was a lot lower than it is today. It was devastating. But in the time of Dr. Jordan, the world came together, they used what they knew at the time, and they endured and survived that pandemic. Here's something I want to point out about that. How did they stop the spread and get through it? They actually did quarantining and stay at home. They actually did personal hygiene and hand washing. They actually did wearing of masks. And they actually did avoid large congregate groups of people getting together. How they had to deal with that 100 years ago is much the same way that we're having to deal with it today. They had no vaccine, they had no treatment that they knew would work. Neither do we. The better hope we have is that we are 100 years more advanced. We have technology and sharing of information among researchers and scientists around the world. And we can have even far more hope that using these practices are going to make that difference and are going to get us through it too. But I want to share with all of our students, this is not a pleasant time for anybody. But you're not just doing this for yourself. Think about 100 years ago, think about today. We're doing this because of our humanity. We are staying at home, we are avoiding large crowds, we are wearing our masks, we are washing our hands, and we are doing everything we can to stop the spread. Because not only do we not want to get infected, but we don't want to infect other human beings. So when I think about this quote, and I'll say it again, I think about what's being asked of all of us throughout Evanston, throughout Illinois, throughout the United States, throughout the world. Wisdom is knowing what to do next. Follow those procedures. The skill in knowing how to do it. And we do know how to do all of those things. And virtue is doing it. Virtue. It's part of our human responsibility to do what we need to do so that we can look back on this and know that we did the right thing. Marcus.
Thank you, Eric. Dr. Witherspoon is always a hard act to follow. We appreciate your words. And we want to say thank you. He and I would like to thank our community and our students and staff for every kind word that you've given to us, every email and every kind gesture in these past several weeks that we've gotten, encouraging us, inspiring us. We just want to say thank you. As he just mentioned, this is about our humanity. We're human beings too, and it is important that we just recognize that you've been good to us, and we just want to say thank you for that. Thank you especially to our students. We are in this with you, and we are asking you to stay strong until we can come together again. And as we end, we want to remind everyone that each of these episodes of eTown Live is uploaded to the ETHS YouTube channel for you to view on demand. And speech-to-text subtitles are available in multiple languages for each recording. A link that explains how to engage subtitles in the video will be shared with the recording of today's program. Be well, be safe, and we will see you next week.